Hey, welcome to Love Talk.
We're doing something different this time. We are streaming live on YouTube as well. We're going to see how that goes. And as usual, of course, Facebook, which is our normal medium. We are live there too. Stay tuned. We have two special guests joining us today. Yeah, just adjusting a little bit.
Welcome. So please feel free to take a seat with us and enjoy. Love it.
I'm so tired of being here, suppressed by all my childish fears. And if you have to leave, I wish that you would just leave. 'Cause your voice still lingers here, and it won't leave me alone. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. When you cried, I wipe away all of your tears. When you scream, I fight away all of your fears. I held your hand through all of these years. You still hold all of me. You used to captivate me by your resonating light. Now I'm bound by the life you've left behind. Your face, it haunts my once pleasant dreams. Your voice, it chased away all the sanity in me. These wounds won't seem to heal. This pain is just too real. There's just too much that time cannot erase. When you cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. When you would scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years. You still have all of me. I tried so hard to tell myself that you're gone, but though you're still with me, I've been alone all alone. You cried, I'd wipe away all of your tears. You scream, I'd fight away all of your fears. And I held your hand through all of these years. You still hold all of me.
enjoyed that opening song. We've been adding a song at the beginning of our videos for a few episodes now, just to give a little bit more flavor. And
as well as trying to find something that connects a little bit to the topic that we are having today.
Yeah, and today's topic is oppressive relationships. This is a continuation. They kind of, of course it's more information, but it's not just the same stuff that we already talked about, but it's a continuation of
a few episodes ago, two episodes ago, back, talking about suffocating relationships. But this one,
maybe 3 by now.
Was it 3?
Yeah, because 2 episodes ago was the long distance topic. So
this is true.
3,
this is true.
3 episodes back, we had this topic, which was relationship life balance, and abusive relationships came up. Suffocating relationships, because how relationships sometimes get in the way.
They're not exactly balanced. Oftentimes you find yourself being, suffocated.
Yeah, and that's how that whole topic of your partner abusing you or trying to hold you back came into the picture. Yeah, and so now we're going to talk about that more.
So with today's topic, we're going to go into something very controversial. And it's something that I would say most of us, would you agree, don't really know a whole lot about, but we've heard our share about. And that is, what it's like to be in a cult. The relationships that are within that, the connections that are made, and the reasons that people, decide that they might not want to be a part of that. And to make clarification, oftentimes cults are associated with, tribal mentality. Yes, maybe it is that in many different ways, but that does not mean that all tribal mentality lifestyles are of a repressive or suffocating kind. The Native Americans, the Amish, lots of other types of peoples that live together in a happy, cohesive environment, though tribal, is, considered to be not of a suffocating or repressive type of relationship.
Yeah, and because we the two of us don't have experience being in a cult, our special guests both grew up in 2 different cults. We have 2 different perspectives, and we're going to be hearing from them in just a moment. So, as usual, we are having a big O at the end.
In fact, we're going to have 2 big O's.
Yeah.
Lucky you.
And it's called the big O because it comes at the end. If there's just one major insight that whoever sharing it thinks stands out the most, that would be it. So there's 2 because we have 2 guests, so each of them will share their big O. And we also have, as usual, a reading for 1 lucky viewer, so stay tuned for that.
Right.
Feel free to share the video too if you think it's relevant to anyone you know or of interest to certain people. By all means, feel free to share. And we are also your coaches, whether it's on love or life or any other thing that we could help you with. Our background is in personal development and coaching, spirituality too, so there's that flavor there, but we can talk more about that. I feel like it's time to get on because we did start late, and we apologize for that. We had technical difficulties, like we were here right when 5:30
I blame the internet. Shame, internet. Shame.
Yeah, it wouldn't connect. So apologies for that if you were waiting. But this video is going to be up still anyway. So it'll be available for viewing even afterwards, even if you don't finish it or stick around for all of it.
And feel free, of course, to add any comments, questions about this. We may or may not be able to get to them, but we love all the feedback that we can get. This is potentially the most serious,
topic that we have done so
or
far.
maybe controversial.
Right, yeah,
'cause
it's got weight.
relationships and love and all that stuff is serious too, and being able to find that happiness with, with yourself and with others is huge. But this is something that beyond the typical relationship stuff that we feel most people are very ignorant upon, and think this is a beautiful way to help give clarity upon something that is far more prevalent than I would have thought was there before meeting these individuals and hearing about their story.
Yeah, and we'll let them tell you themselves. We have questions that are already set, but by all means, if you're curious about anything, feel free to ask. And like Joshua already said, we might not get to them all, but let's see what we can cover in our time today.
So I would like to introduce to you, we have Aurora and Russell.
Oh. Can have them here. I was thinking, should we scoot that closer so if we see any questions?
No.
Yeah, to accommodate some questions.
All right.
Yeah, there. Yeah, we're all visible.
Wait.
So, Russell's not.
I'm cut out.
Hi. There, we can
Ish.
like sideways.
Ish.
There.
No, I'm going back to what it was.
Okay.
It fit everybody in before.
All right. Well,
All right.
apologies
Perfect.
if we don't see your questions because we had to scoot the camera further back. Just
And
so.
we don't have perfect vision.
Yeah, that's really what it is. But hopefully the questions that we have ready will satisfy your curiosity in case, you were probably wondering the same things anyway, a few of the same things that we are going to be asking. So shall we start?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So first question for you, Aurora, and then for you, Russell. Tell us a little bit about where-ish and what type of religious or that there be situation that this was.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in a Christian cult. It was evangelical, and there are a few different denominations in the cult, but definitely, very conservative, traditional male-female nuclear family kind of a situation. And I was born into it, and I was in two different parts of it. When I was raised in the Midwest, I was in the cult, and then when I went to college on the West Coast, there was another group of them out there, so I was also in it in college.
And for you,
What
Russell?
about you?
So actually, for me, I kind of grew up in a similar situation. It was Christian faith as well, and they were originated from Palmyra, New York, otherwise known as the Mormons.
Okay.
And they are very strict on obeying the rules and always following what they tell you to do. And they really did believe in power and authority that you have to follow. So it was very hard for me and a lot of other people to be able to really follow those rules and not feel bad about things when we make mistakes. That was one of the biggest things that really affected me.
Yeah.
So to start with some simple questions.
That a lot of people ask.
So
right? Like-
did you have to wear uniforms? I would say by this expression, something that has been asked maybe
Yeah,
a
a
few
lot.
I
times.
just, I don't always tell people that I was raised in a cult because, like, here's the deal. Whenever I'm with my friends, it's kind of funny. Like, there's a lot of parts that I think are hilarious. But, if I don't know you too well, I might not want you to be laughing at it just yet. So this is like one of the questions that I get a lot, but I will answer it. We would wear uniforms at school, and then the rest of the time we didn't have to wear uniforms, but there were a lot of like different rules and codes, like especially for girls, like okay, your shirt has to be like this many fingers, be from right here, or like this many fingers, your skirt length, and like a lot of those. So there were a lot of measurements, but not necessarily uniform.
Yeah, that's really funny that you said that, because it's pretty much the same thing in the Mormon culture, that they're very strict on what you can wear, especially they were really geared towards women and what they wore, and the skirts, and them being too short, that's not okay, you know, and like you're being too revealing of your body, you're being immodest, like that's immoral of you to show yourself like that to other people. It causes men to have thoughts that,
oh no,
yeah, exactly, like
they can't help it.
yeah, like, you know, we're all made to have those kind of thoughts, you know, we're all made to have desires and to feel what you want to feel, and to have to like suppress them is a very challenging thing to do. And so you feel stressed all the time in your life because you feel like you need to be able to express these feelings, and you need to be able to show people how you feel, but you can't, because you're restrained from this cult or this religion that has all these rules that try to keep you in line, because that's what they want you to do.
Yeah, and you know, I think there's a lot of giving up your self-expression with how your body looks. Like, you're supposed to be willing to give that up without question. Like, even if they had asked you to like give up a type of jewelry you liked, like you should be doing that. Or like, you can't dye your hair. Lots of rules about piercings. Men can't look effeminate. They can't have long hair. They can't have a pierced ear. So the clothing control and like how you're holding your body and presenting yourself is controlled. And I think that's basically opening the door to then saying, and now we're going to control more of your behavior and also your thought patterns.
What about color? Could you wear any type of color you wanted? Would it have to be a solid color, or could you have a mixed color?
Or a pattern?
Well, in the Mormon church, I know specifically when you go to church, you have to wear a white shirt. Yes. It's symbolic. There's a lot of symbolism in the church. So you have to wear a white shirt, you know, dark colored slacks. You can't wear jeans. The only time you can wear those certain things is if you're a guest or if you're visiting. That's the only time that you're really allowed to wear those kind of clothes, or casual clothing. But if you're a member, it's very strict, and you need to be able to follow those rules, because it's symbolic of things in the church.
Yeah.
So that is the closest thing to a uniform that we really had to wear.
Interesting.
Well, we would wear a uniform at school, and those were, you know, you could only pick from there was very specific things that you could pick from the uniform store. But then outside of that, as far as colors go, we weren't really allowed to paint our nails black or wear, you know, dark makeup or things. And it wasn't a rule, but I know my parents were always really afraid that I was going to turn goth. So even if I was wearing dark navy blue shirts, my dad would be like, "Are you going goth? Are you going to come home with a dead cat or a dead bird in a box?" And I'm like, I don't know.
They always take it to the extreme, huh?
Yeah, they're like so afraid. They're like, "Are you going to become a Satanist?" And I was like, "Nah, I'm wearing like navy blue, dark. I don't know."
So, good question from my father, actually.
Oh, let's hear it.
So we're kind of jumping past some of the more mediocre questions to an actual big one.
Good.
So, how were you disciplined when you broke rules?
Oh, we were talking about
Oh
this
wow,
before
I literally don't even know where to start with this one. I can go on for hours, but I'll try to
give us the.
You still have to go to church.
Yeah. Okay. So I was just talking about this earlier, and in the Mormon church, it's very strict, and they have this thing where they use fear to really make you scared of making mistakes, and shame. Yeah, right, and guilt. So when you go to confess in the Mormon church, it's not a side by side. You can't see the priest. No, it's face to face. So you are literally in front of this man who's middle-aged, maybe 55, and you explain to him what you've done. Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
In detail. So weird.
In detail. Everything. And what he does is he makes you feel terrible. Like you just feel like you are worthless. Like you can't improve. You know, you're always trying to be perfect, and every time you go in to tell them what you're doing, they just make you feel really bad about it. You know, it's called church disciplinary action. And if you get to a certain point in that disciplinary action, they'll actually go to the point of disfellowshipping you, which means they make you go to church, but no one will acknowledge you.
Wow.
So no one will come up and shake your hand. No one will say hi. You're just there.
Wow. Wow. That's you know, for a type of a mental, emotional type of discipline, that is really intense. I mean, to no longer be acknowledged. Was it similar-esque for you?
We had a lot of different ways. Kind of on the more extreme side, I've seen like someone I know was kicked out of the cult via text message.
Wow.
After 30 years, not even face to face, just kicked out via text message. A lady who has health problems, and everyone knew she was gonna need to move in about 2 months. So that's how they sent her a text saying, we prayed about it, and the Spirit has guided us that you shouldn't be in the community anymore. So it's one of the more extreme ones. People could be put on probation, things like that. Definitely there was some shaming and scolding. I know I was pulled aside for people to yell at me, even before they really knew me. I remember I was going on one of our mission trips, and it was like the second or third day, and I'd worked so hard to be there. And I had 2 little strips of blue hair for the summer. Oh no. And they just took such offense to that, and they like paraded me past like 30 or 40 people, and then made everyone vacate a house. All like parade out, like we're bringing her in to have a talk with her, and then just like screamed in my face and cussed at me and told me that I was being like rebellious, and they didn't even know me. They called me a punk, like just a bunch of shit. And then I was crying, and then I had to like wait in the house and then come back out. And as I'm coming back out on the porch, everyone's like, "What? Oh, like what's happening?" Like just like publicly shamed and yelled at and cussed in private, but publicly shamed, very much so.
If this is too much to answer, I understand, but physically, was there any
punishment?
Yeah.
For me, no, there actually wasn't any physical punishment. It was all psychological. And in a sense, I think that can be more damaging.
I agree with you fully on that. You know, bruises heal, but you know, you mess with the mind, and yeah, that can last for a long time.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes, it can. I was physically attacked by. There were 2 big incidents when I was older. I was an adult, a young adult, and I had a few physical. I was physically attacked by a few male members on 2 different occasions, and there were other people in the room, and they saw, and nobody did anything. And I think a lot of that is because I was not the model member. I was always kind of a quirky, eccentric person. I have a very big personality, as you guys know. So they, and because of that, and because I would ask questions and sometimes not go along with the program, there's really this opinion that, you know, when you act like that and you're not in obedience and alignment with God's will and like blah, 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 then you're welcoming bad things into your life. And that it's your fault when bad things happen. So I think that there was a little bit of that there. So when I was physically attacked by men in the community, I think the reason why there wasn't, like, people didn't step in and help, they didn't know what to do, but also, and why there wasn't a pushback or anything like that is because, again, I wasn't the model obedient member. So, yeah, I think so. Yeah. It was unpleasant.
Thank you for being able to share that. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Well, speaking of the whole male-female topic, how would each of you describe the dynamics?
Oh my gosh. Okay, let me take the wheel on this one,
Yeah,
guys.
Jesus take the wheel on.
Jesus, take the wheel on this one. Oh man, I don't even know where to start. Well, in the Mormon Church, the biggest thing is the male is the provider. So he's in charge of providing the money, the job, like providing the family with the necessary things they need. And the female is necessarily for the kids. So the church is really, really against the females having full-time jobs because they believe that it is their responsibility to nurture their children. And I thought that was bogus because, you know, they need to be able to support themselves, you know, like what happens if they get in a divorce or what happens if they get in a tough situation to where they need to support themselves, you know? It's not easy from what I've heard. And so that was the biggest thing in the church that I really didn't agree with. And another thing is how the men have the authority in the family, which is the authority that is needed to get to heaven. They believe that you need this specific authority to get to heaven, and only men can hold that authority. So,
Yeah.
And then about before you, Aurora, what about with pre-marriage relationships?
Oh,
Russell?
okay, let me begin. I've actually had experience with that one. Wow. I'm going to tell you a story, actually.
Yeah.
So there was this one time I was living in a house in Washington, and there were two parts. The place where we actually lived in, and then there's like a bonus room, like a separate part right above the garage. And there's my dad's office there, and I decided to have a little fun with my girlfriend. And yeah, oh my God.
God forbid, you know.
Yeah. Because in the Mormon church, or cult, as you may call it, it's really against the rules to have premarital sex. They believe that it's a very sacred thing, and they believe that it should only happen within marriage. So whenever people have sex out of marriage, it's a huge sin, and you can be greatly punished for it. So when I did this with my ex-girlfriend, obviously my parents didn't know, but I felt terrible about it. Like I just felt so bad, like so depressed, so down, that I actually went to my parents and told them that I did it, thinking that it would help me overcome this guilt that I built up over time. And what happened, it actually turned out to be worse. My parents went to the bishop, or otherwise known as the priest, and told him, and then I went into him, and he made me feel really bad about it. So that's the thing, is word gets around quick about that kind of stuff in cults. And that's something that a lot of people need to understand, is that people will go behind your back just because they think it's right for you. They think, oh, this will make him happier if he can repent, or if he can confess.
You're doing what's best for him.
And deciding that.
Yeah.
Like they can decide that.
Yeah, like who can make that decision for you?
What about for you, Aurora?
Okay, so male-female dynamics were very set. I would say that women were allowed to have full-time jobs and get further education. So we did have that. But the man was the head of the household, and the man would then have like a mentor who he would go to, who was a man. So the husband was the mentor of the relationship, and then he would have a male mentor. But women could not mentor men. Men could mentor women. So they were on the hierarchy, and also men could be on the board, and they'd get have different positions and things like that.
but only men could hold positions, and women could kind of have be like advisors, but it wasn't a position. And there again, it was a lot of what you were talking about, how the man is responsible for, in times of extreme stress, men are responsible for making the decisions as well as the outcomes of the decisions. And they really phrase it like, hey, we're doing a service to the women, and we're helping take care of the women because we want to do this for you. But really the underside of that is it's very infantilizing to women. We really don't have a lot of agency. Someone else is making decisions for us, and then we're not responsible for the outcome. So then it's very, actually, I think, very easy to say with your life, oh, things are going wrong, and da-da-da-da-da. And, well, you know, I wasn't the one making the decisions. And it takes a lot of agency away from women. I certainly don't want to live that way. Also, I think that's way too much pressure on men to be solely responsible for the outcome of the relationship. And there's a lot of controlling, I want to swear, but I won't, controlling people who get attracted to relationships like this. These men who think, oh, I get to control the situation. That is so gross. And you know, they do bad things and get away with it. And it's secretive. There's so much secretive, and it's bad. It's bad. It's bad. It's bad. And then to answer your question about what dating was like in the cult, oh my God, it's so funny. There's so many rules. You had to keep it secret, first off, because the thing is. So
it's allowed as long as you don't tell anybody about it.
Well, you can tell your mentor, but you can't tell other people.
Interesting.
Because the thing was, if it went wrong, so women, if someone in the community asked us for a date, we couldn't say no. We had to give them at least 2 dates. Yes.
Oh, wow.
And you couldn't date until you had gone through a process where I know, it's bizarre, right? So you weren't allowed to date, and then when you wanted to start thinking about dating, you went through a process, and you would figure out, do I want to be single for the Lord? Do I want to marry? What do I want to do? And then after that, you could start courtship, where you couldn't have sex. But you couldn't tell other people who you were dating, because then if it didn't work out, they would want other cult members to be able to date that person without drama.
Could you date multiple people since it's a mystery? Okay.
Yeah, you could. It was a discernment process.
Interesting.
And and then eventually, like, you wouldn't even hear. I would hear about people getting engaged, and I'd known them for a while, and I had no idea they were dating someone for over a year. It was weird. And also, again, with women needing to give men at least 2 dates, that is completely non-consensual and completely takes away agency from women. And that's rape culture right there. That is not okay to say that we don't get to have those boundaries around our body. There was so much emphasis on virginity and purity, but nothing on consent. And that is so gross to me. And honestly, in groups like this, we find very often that there's marital sex, and then this is the one way to do it, and then everything outside of that is wrong, whether it's non-consensual sex, manipulative sex, or extramarital sex. They're on the same level.
Extramarital meaning what, like oral sex?
Premarital sex.
Okay. What about anything more than basic intercourse? Was
it allowed?
Was that a big no-no to give some fellatio action?
Or as long as you keep it secret, it's okay.
Yeah, as long as nobody knows, you're good.
Right? For me, I think they left that up to, because there were a few denominations within the cult, so I think they left that up to denominations.
You know, it's really funny that you said that, because the same thing with Mormons. They're very, when I was there, at least, they're very, sex is taboo, like, keep it a secret, you know, like, it's so impure outside of marriage, you know, like, and people who are not married, you know, be careful while you're listening to people who are married, so you don't get thoughts, like,
Oh no!
impure thoughts, you know,
Don't
and
get
like,
impure thoughts.
so they use that to kind of control your thought process.
Because you're gonna have those thoughts.
I know, it's
and
ridiculous.
then you're just gonna feel so bad about it.
Just having the thought, so you're literally sitting there like battling in your head.
Yes, we would have
Right?
this phrase thought life. You had to mind your thought life.
Wow.
Isn't that bonkers wild?
A little
I
bit.
mean,
Yes, and that's why a lot of people,
Okay.
after they leave a cult, they need to go to a psychologist. And I
Yeah.
was just speaking with her about that earlier. I've actually been to one myself.
Great.
Good for you.
So,
Yeah.
thanks.
You know, you break an arm, you get a cast. People think that your head's messed up and it's not okay to go get that treated, but that's silly. I mean, the head rules all, so you should get a cast for your head. You know, get that help. That's a mature thing,
Let's try to
in
do
my
that.
opinion. I myself
You got
see
it.
a therapist because why not? Why not try to,
Great.
fix those
Yeah.
injuries?
Just like everything else you try to fix in your life, you know?
So when did you realize you wanted to leave?
Oh, man. You know what? That's been an ongoing process for like 2 years. It's always been something that I've been working on, and it took me a really long time to finally start realizing that this was something that was bad to me. Like, it started out as subtle little things, subtle little faults that I found in the cults.
For example,
Well, just the information that they hold from you. For example, there's a lot of information about the history of the church and the cult that the leaders of the church or people in the church don't tell you because they don't want you to know that information. So if they tell you that information, there's a possibility, of course, that you will leave. And of course, they don't want you to leave. So what they do is they keep that information from you. And so one day I got really curious and I started searching, I started searching about the church, the history, and I started finding things that were not true about the church. And it just all started to roll from there.
so inconsistencies.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So it's been like a long process of 2 years. I'm still working on it, and it takes time to reprogram your mind.
Yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah. Unknot it and put it back together.
mhm. So
Ooh, yeah.
And for you, Laura?
Well, let's see. I had a lot of these moments, especially in college. When I was a little older, and I was starting to make some friends at college, and who were so patient with me. I'm so grateful to those wonderful people. I mean, I love them so much. But I would start to get these feelings. I'd be standing in the kitchen and cooking or something, and then I would just get this urge, and I would look over at the front door, and I would just all of a sudden have this feeling like I could just walk out of here, and I could just keep walking, and I hadn't quite fully processed why all the way, but it was like from my gut, and we were taught not to trust our instincts. You had to fully convince yourself to have faith. And I'll push it back to 1984 when they're torturing the guy, and there's like 2 + 2 = 5, and no, and they buzz him, and they're like 2 + 2 = 5, and he's like no, and then they buzz him, and eventually he says, okay, fine, 2 + 2 = 5, and they said no, you have to believe it.
The Orwell.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
So you had to believe these things. You had to you had to believe them, or else there would be so much cognitive dissonance that your whole world was going to crumble. It's frightening. It's so scary because they tell you that this is the only way to live with joy, and all other relationships are going to pale in comparison. You will never feel fulfilled. So getting these feelings of wanting to leave, it was terrifying. It was so scary because I thought, how can I survive out there? How can I have a meaningful life? It's important to me to have a meaningful life with full relationships. I value relationships more than money. These are tribes. And But I kept getting these feelings and feelings and feelings. And finally, I was about ready to leave, but I really wanted to ask them why women could not be in pastoral leadership roles. And I asked a lot of women in the community where I lived, and nobody had a really good explanation. Different words. So I went to a retreat, a women's retreat, where guess who all the speakers were? All men! Like,
That makes a lot of sense.
what?
Yeah,
are there women at the men's retreat? Like, the answer is no. So that's stupid. But I finally was able to talk with one of the main founders, and she let me know that actually, in the beginning, there were women in leadership roles, but we were attracting too many women and not enough men, so we needed to cater it to men to get more men on board, and men naturally don't want to take any kind of orders from women, and they want to be the ones in control. So to make it more appealing, they said, okay, only men are in control. And that really opened the doors. I had already seen a lot of really horrible toxic masculinity where just horrible behavior was explained away, like, oh, that's what men are like. And I just got to tell you, no, that's not what. It's unacceptable that people are like that. Sometimes people do horrible things, but to say this is just naturally how people are.
Gross categorize specific gender.
Terrible.
And try to make it feel normal, you know? Like, just, you know, something that's normal and it's okay, you know?
So I left. I bounced. I went out.
How old were you?
I had recently turned 22. I made it through college, and I had found an internship that was a spiritually based, like a religious internship. So everyone knew I was going on this year of service, and people were pretty happy about it. You know, people have done this, but I was leaving, and I wasn't coming back.
Okay.
Beautiful.
Good decision.
Yes.
I mean, the brainwashing efforts that they make, and for you to find that power within yourselves to
It's worked through to
reach that.
It feels good.
Such a strong hold.
Yeah.
And to find your own power within is it's so beautiful.
Not me. Not today.
You know,
Guess again. Yes. Yeah.
You two are inspiration. I mean, truly.
Thank you.
I mean, you think of so many people that complain about the regular world that's going on, and being able to hear the effort put into programming you and being able to fight that and find your truth. And
you have to be strong mentally and emotionally.
You know, you really
trust.
do. Yeah. And that's one thing for me too. Like, I've been finding a lot of times, like I've been having to do other things, like methods of breathing, methods of, like meditation and stuff like that, just to be able to like really calm my mind and know that everything's gonna be okay.
What did they feel on that note about meditation? Was there any talk of that? Was that a no-no?
So that's very interesting that you asked that, because I actually wasn't the first person in my family to leave. I actually have 3 sisters, and they all left before me. And I came back and figured out that they're all practicing meditation. And it's funny because my mom is still strong in the church, and her explanation of that is, oh, that feeling that you feel when you're meditating is from God. Like, it's the spirit, you know, like it's from God, like telling you, like, you know, this is what you should do. It's still the same thing, but it's just because you're peaceful, you know, it's not, they try to manipulate the situation, you know, and so that is their viewpoint on it. It's like, it's very manipulative. And so when I started meditating and doing that kind of thing, all of the Mormons would come up to me and be like, that's cool that you do that. You know, you're listening to the spirit more. You're listening to God more. And more so, it was just a method of me just trying to calm my mind, you know? And they always have to put this religious aspect on everything, you know? So they try to label everything with religion and not just the mere fact that it's just what it is, you know?
Right.
So
they have to give their own meaning to it for it to be okay.
Exactly. They put their own spin on everything. And that's what really affected me was every time I tried something new, my family would come in or other people in the church, they would come in and tell me, oh, it's because of this, it's because of that, you know? And so I eventually figured out that you don't have to listen to those people. So that's what happened.
Perhaps there are many paths to a similar destination.
Yeah, it's all about what works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. When you mentioned family, either of you still talk to your parents?
I do.
What's that like?
I still talk to my parents. I've taken some breaks from them. I didn't go home for 2 years at one point. I live in a different state as them. But I like them. They're really goofy, sweet people. And I think they're really loving and they're authentic. Like they're doing what they believe.
Mm-hmm.
And that said, some of their habits and behaviors, and especially who they bring around from the cult, is actually very traumatizing to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very disappointing, and it breaks my heart. And I've had to reevaluate. There came a point in time where I really needed to decide: am I going to stop talking to them, or is there a way I can make this work? And the way that I did to make it work was to just change my expectations of them, because I started expecting a little less from them, honestly, and that meant that like in this life, people will sometimes celebrate you and support you, and sometimes people will just support you. And my family, my parents, don't celebrate who I am, but they support me and they want to see me happy. So I accept their support, and I understand that they won't celebrate me, so I don't look to them for I don't look to them for like positive reaction or affirmations or validation. That's the word I'm looking for. I don't look to them for validation.
You know, that sounds very familiar, because it's the same thing with me. Like you try not to look for confirmation or approval, because the biggest thing is
you won't get it.
Exactly, you won't get it.
And it's sad.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with my parents where I am trying to make them understand why I'm doing things that make me happy, or explain things, and they are not getting it. And I've reached a point where I have been like screaming on the phone at my mom, and I don't want to do that, but because it's so frustrating and maddening sometimes. And I mean, we just see the world so differently, and can you not see that these people were so harmful that they hurt me? Do you not understand how much they hurt me? Don't you care? And the thing is, she does care, but again, with the cognitive dissonance, they have to accept these people in the bubble. All the people in the bubble are safe. These are the good ones. And then everybody outside of that bubble, mixed bag, but probably mostly bad.
Against the rules. You can't hang out with them. Yeah.
And then I come and try and tell them, just so you know, people in the bubble are kind of messed up and have hurt me, and me being around them hurts me. And they don't get it. So I just have to have some boundaries and change my expectations. But I do still talk to them.
Okay. Well, you saying that they're really cool and loving and all that explains a lot why you are there.
Thank you. Yeah, they're spunky. Oh, yay! Friendship.
Good for you, sir.
Yeah, for me, that was a really hard situation for me too. Like when I left, my parents were very frustrated, and they got very depressed from that situation, and it took a big toll on them. And like you were saying, it's very challenging to kind of find that middle ground. Like for a long time, I was trying to figure out how to still have a good relationship with my parents, but like you said, they're not fully supporting you in the actions that you're taking. So subconsciously, you're sitting there always trying to make decisions, but you really don't want your parents to know about those decisions because they don't approve, right?
Secrets.
Yes, exactly.
Secrets.
So, So what you're doing is you're making decisions, but you're very conscious about it because you're also thinking about your parents too.
Mhm.
And you love them,
Because
you
you
know?
love them, yeah.
Exactly.
You don't want to disappoint them and make them sad. Like, it's painful.
Yeah.
Yeah. We get publicly shamed a lot. So, you know, it hits us hard when people are sad or disappointed with us. You know? Like, oh, I'm being bad. You know.
Yeah, you're taught to always be a people pleaser. You're always taught to, like we were talking about earlier, like to emotionally help people, other people.
Yes. Yes, and really erase your sense of self. Like, we would have these phrases like death to self and like being in service to the Lord. Like, you really had to give yourself up. And it's really great to be generous, but you know what? It's also good to have a sense of self and some boundaries and understand that if I'm acting a certain way, as long as I'm not being harmful or, you know, unkind or manipulative or, you know, consuming somebody else, I get to act that way if it makes me feel happy. And if you feel disappointed, I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction. I'm responsible for my actions. I'm not responsible for your emotional reaction. And I'm responsible for my own emotions too.
Exactly. Just like what you said, like it's very stressful because you're always thinking about what the other person is thinking about. So what it does is it programs your head to think, oh, how am I making this person feel? Or like it's my responsibility to, you know, make them feel good, you know, and it's very stressful. And what that does is it starts to tear you down because you're not focusing on yourself.
Yep. And then also we were talking about feeling responsible for other people's salvation.
Yeah.
You know, they really let us know, especially when we're young, we're supposed to be out there recruiting and talking to people. You're responsible. Like, you know, if there are people around you who are condemned to hell and you're not making an effort to try and convince them, it's partially your fault that they're going to hell.
Yep.
So that's messed up. Yeah.
Well, what can you say about your self-expression now that you're out? What are you?
I'm free.
Oh my God.
And was there any acting out at first?
Wait, but how long have you been
out? You want to go first? No,
I will say I've been out for 6 years, and definitely thank you. It was wonderful. But afterwards, I got into a controlling relationship. So I've been out of that for 2 years. So it's kind of like steps. My self-expression has just gone bonkers. So much fun. My self-expression is like an exploding glitter cannon. I like go to festivals. I face paint. I put like googly eyes on my forehead, and I wear like contacts and like like I'm here for it. I love it. But beyond that, like I love making weird faces. Or like I'm so eccentric, and I just let myself do it. Like I've like run out and at night and like run into the ocean naked, screaming. Like I like really I do it now. Like I bungee jump. I'm like like wild women. I have so much fun, and I like getting I like body modifications. I like some jewelry. Got a tattoo.
All the things that you couldn't do before, you can finally do now.
And they make me feel so good. Like I love making collages. I love making people gifts. I'm very into Wicca and like pagan spirituality. So I love those kind of paintings. I go out in nature and I do rituals now. That's a really big part of my self-expression. I'll make a medicine bag and like bring a little thing of alcohol and like, you know, learn about the culture of the land, like learn about, you know, what Native people lived there, what their names are, what they thought of the place. You know, I definitely express myself and like try and tap into spiritual energies. That's definitely a big one for me. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I can't say I quite, you know, jumped into like something naked, but
I did.
What?
How long's it been?
2 years.
Yeah, you
2 years.
Oh man, you wait a few more years.
I'm still
you're
a
gonna be
noob.
like, no, you're gonna be like jumping off. You're gonna be wild. Keep going.
I'll get to that point.
You're getting to it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you were saying earlier, like I think the biggest thing for me was like just being able to do the things that I wasn't able to do before.
Mm-hmm.
Like you know, in the Mormon church, I wasn't able to drink, or you know, they even said loud laughter is against the rules, and like I was like, are you? Yeah, just like that.
I know this.
I know you. And so it was really liberating, I guess, for me to be able to do those things, you know. And so like you just feel more alive, and you don't feel like I didn't feel like I was very suppressed anymore. And so since then, I was able to express myself through just, you know, doing things that I wasn't able to do before, which was like partying, drinking, you know, and what everybody else does, like what normal people do, you know.
Experience life the way you wish.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't have that like mind control, which was a big thing.
Eating
So
it.
for me, that's how it was. I never really understood that concept until I got out, you know. And so once I got out, I started expressing myself in a natural way, not in a way that people were watching you and like controlling.
Mm-hmm.
But more of who you are, doing things the way you want to do.
Exactly.
Yes, and there was a big choice, you know, because at one point it became so oppressive and uncomfortable in my mind where I really had to choose, am I going or staying? What am I going to do? I couldn't coast. And I'm grateful for that hard decision to either kind of stay pent up or bloom and like get it, which is difficult. It's hard work. And I'm happy that I made the choice to invest in myself and listen to myself and just learn how to trust my intuition more after it has been, you know, carved up and sliced and diced and given back to me. And this is what you believe in. If you don't, your life is in danger if you don't believe this. And now I can express myself. I also really like to go to places like the World Naked Bike Ride and and just like do stuff. And I definitely got really sexually adventurous like right after I left. I think I went a little overboard. I've slowed down a little bit, but you know, I'm having a good time. I'm having a real good time.
So in the end, as you said, if you're not hurting yourself or others, why can we not express ourselves and grow?
Have fun, you know.
Who we want to be.
Like, seriously, like, why limit yourself just because of what other people think you should do, you know?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man. I get primal. I'm rolling around in the dirt, yelling, howling at the moon, you know, get it.
I don't care what other people think. I'm just going to do what I want to do, you know? Kind of thing.
Yeah.
So when you first left, this is a question for both of you. Coming from a really, you know, frightened place because you were still in the throes of being controlled and all that, where did you go?
Well, at first I was really scared, like where I went, like emotionally, like you said earlier, like they really make you think that's, you know, you got nowhere to go. So the first thing I tried to do was just to tell myself everything was going to be okay, you know. And I had my sisters there helping me along the way. So they were actually like, "Woo, yeah, we're so happy for you! Like, welcome to the club of apostates, you know, like welcome, you know." And so that's kind of where I went. Is I went to them for help because I was very emotionally unstable at that time. And so they came to me and helped me out and said, it's all right, you know, you can do what you want now, you know, go explore, you know, and so I really just started doing that with them. And so that's something that I had to do for myself in order to overcome that fear that the cult really put in my mind. And so I started exploring and doing things that I didn't do before. So.
That's wonderful. That's great. Good to have siblings.
Yes.
Oh, that's so nice. That's great. People having your back, you know.
Yep. In fact, I smoked my first joint with my siblings.
Nice.
You're bad. Oh
my gosh, I'm a sinner.
Oh, that's so wrong.
It was on Christmas Eve.
Oh my gosh, sacrilege. Oh.
So sacrilegious.
So
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Jesus, like watching you.
You're a bad boy.
That's great. Ooh, that is so funny. Well, my transition was, as I said before, I joined a year of service. So I actually went to like a different mini community of 4 people, which was like a roller coaster. But at least I got out and I moved and I having new experiences. It was very intense for me. I was like constantly exhausted and constantly readjusting and like talking to people, and like I didn't understand any cultural references. Like I had to look stuff up on Urban Dictionary so much, and people were like, "You don't know what this means?" I'm like, I really don't. So there's a learning curve there. And then about 8 months after I got out of the cult, I started a relationship, which was a learning opportunity where it was such a roller coaster, and there was a lot of toxic stuff in it, and it was parts of it were like crazy unhealthy, but I didn't have a firm enough grasp on reality to know that certain things were unacceptable, and I really shouldn't have been around that. But we had a lot of highs. Like I would in the cult can kind of, they do these things to induce euphoria. And they do that during like praise and worship, where people are like talking in tongues, and then they're like passing out, like falling on the ground, and like you feel this euphoria, and it's kind of this induced. It's like being on drugs. Mm-hmm. It's like being on a drug. This euphoria. And with this relationship, it was with a man who was an alcoholic, and he's in recovery. So he's still an alcoholic. That's how it goes. But he wasn't drinking. But I would feel a lot of these euphoria moments with him, which is very common with addicts, like these moments of euphoria, and then that just like crashes. Mm-hmm. So it would be euphoria, crash a lot. And I stayed in that relationship for longer than I should have, because I was afraid of being alone, and I didn't quite trust myself to take care of myself, especially around vehicles and travel. And I was like, I want to go on adventures, but how can I do it without a boyfriend? And I thought I like desperately needed him, and like part of me doubted that I would be okay without him. And then I finally just like kept growing and making better platonic relationships and becoming more grounded and just working on trusting myself more. So I was able to get out of it. And then I joined Al-Anon, which is for friends and family of alcoholics. And I was able to go there and just really share my truth. And people believed me and supported me, and I didn't have to prove anything. I just could show up, and it was such an amazing group, and I'm really grateful. So they helped me a lot. So a lot of friends, a lot of just self-expression, trusting myself, and then getting away from controlling people.
Yeah. That's awesome. It sounds like the journey has really paid off. Yeah.
It really has.
Oh, yeah, completely.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it, Like we were saying earlier, it's very liberating. And when you, like you said, when you can start trusting yourself more and making your own decisions, that's when you get to start to take power over your own life and not let other people determine what you do.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing. I don't know if you notice that, but I definitely notice that. Like once you start being able to make your own decisions without any subconscious thinking going on, you're like, oh,
that doubting.
Yeah, exactly.
I still get that. Oh,
me too.
Oh my gosh.
I still get it.
I have
it's
to,
hard.
And that's things I have to like be consciously aware of it, because it can be going on in the background of my mind without me really even acknowledging that little like track. And I have to be aware of it and say, no,
you have to be like,
I do know.
Shut up.
Yeah, that mindfulness,
taking back control.
Yeah.
I mean, I could share that not coming from a cult. There's still that thing in the back of the mind that loves to give you doubt, that loves to try to contradict what the gut instinct is, that tries to tell you, whether it's cult norm or societal norm, there's these preconceived notions that have been drilled within you, and the battle necessary to try to grasp upon what is your truth versus this thing that's been
in your life.
to you.
Yeah.
For so long.
Yeah, and you know, I would really recommend, there's a great TED Talk called The War on Consciousness, and it talks about why are our cultures so against these different medicines that a lot of societies use to enhance your consciousness, like mushrooms and ayahuasca and different drugs and medicines like that. And a lot of it is because, you know, there's pressures in our own culture outside of cult to not be conscious, to just zone out, watch TV, drink, you know, go on Tinder, go on, you know, immediate satisfaction, go on your phone.
It's like suppress versus explore.
Yeah, you know, I think there's a lot of consumerism and capitalism kind of wants you to check out.
Like herd mentality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Buy it, buy it, buy it, buy it. You're going to be happy if you buy this thing.
I mean, we are all within our own little bubble, and I, you know, have explored in ways to, be it pot or mushrooms, a way to be able to step outside of that bubble, and I feel constructively can be a phenomenal way to gain insight. It's like you see this destructive relationship, and everybody around that relationship can see that it's destructive, but because you're in the inner mix of it, you're blind to it. And there are ways, and this by no means is advocating go do drugs or whatever, but in a constructive way, there are methods that are actually being explored now medically, finally, that a lot of these laws are being brought down to see how much we can learn by being able to step outside of our bubble and being able to see what for so many others is so clear, but we are blind to, stuck just looking out. Sometimes we need to learn how to look within.
Yeah, and I think that capitalism and consumerism, it really blinds people. And, you know, that's the thing is, when I've been able to identify these structures that are in place, you know, in the cult, that everyone just goes along with, oh, this is the right way, and don't speak out against it. But those structures are so elsewhere in society. I mean, like, if we're really telling the truth about where we live in the United States, like, we're on, like, genocide land. We're on, like, stolen genocide land.
The biggest Holocaust in history, which is not talked about, happened here.
Yes.
Native American people.
Correct.
More than 100 million were killed by various means by the Europeans and
and I mean, we're taught that we own this space and that we're entitled to it, and you just got to keep buying things and going to the mall. And you're going to be happy if you start this detox, this with fit tea or whatever, and buy new clothes. And, you know, it's just not real life. It's not. It's part of life, but that's not the point.
Yeah, it's all just created by other people.
Structure.
Yep.
I mean, again, going back to what you said earlier, Aurora, the whole, if you're not hurting yourself and you're not hurting others, why can we not explore? Why can we not try to see what is out there? Because even the most open individual, I feel, still is barely grasping 1% of the possibilities of what is there to learn and experience. And so much effort is put in there to suppress, especially from where you guys came from.
Definitely. Narrow-mindedness is not what you want. That's like the biggest thing you probably saw too. Is they're very narrow-minded in their views. And like we were talking about, trying to express yourself and to get out of that is very challenging. But once you get out, it's like this whole new world.
Yeah.
It's like you start over again.
It's so exciting. It's so exciting.
Yeah.
It's so fun. And then also being able to recognize too all the different little like channels and where they're trying to hurt us in this society is like, I already know that trick. So
yeah, don't try that on me.
I already did it.
You're not sending the missionaries to my house.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Don't tell them where I live because I'm not going to answer my door anyways.
Oh man.
Well, in retrospect, was there anything good that came from you being in a cult? And anything that society can learn from your experience?
That's actually a very good question. And to be completely honest, there's so much that you can say from that. And that is the one thing that I've noticed that was actually good from it is the very fact that you need to take control of your own life. And that's what being in it actually inadvertently taught me, if that makes sense. Like, that's the positive thing I got from it. The very fact that I was able to get out and to be able to take control of my own life.
Great.
So that was the biggest thing that happened was learning that being in that cult was not good for me, but in the other sense, it was good because it started to help me notice that I can live this life outside of it. So even though I was in it, I was also learning that I don't need to be, and that you can be your own self, and that you can be positive.
That you can live outside the bubble.
Exactly.
It sounds like a sci-fi movie.
Do it.
Yeah, it's great. I love it. Oh man. So to answer that question, you know, you have already heard my thoughts on, you know, capitalism and consumerism, like that. So I think that cults, really, they strike a few chords with people that it's really primal, you know, and it feels right to have a goal, to have meaning in your life, to have deep relationships with people who will forgive you and work things out if there's conflict. Except, you know, they do it in like really underhanded, weird, shady ways.
Yes.
But you know, let's talk about the concepts, not the execution. Lots of great concepts. Relationships more important than money and ego. We share with each other. We take care of each other. If someone's sick, we show up. If someone has a baby, we bring them food. Someone needs to get picked up from the airport, we are there. Someone needs to be hosted. Someone had a fire in their home and needs a place to go. We got you.
Tribal mentality.
That tribe that really is so powerful, and like I miss that sometimes. Having those big groups of people who I could help and who would help me, it feels good. It feels real good. So I would say that is a positive thing that I learned from it. And another thing that I learned is even though they really wanted to put life in the binary, it had to be black and white, the good and the bad. I really understood after getting out of there that that's not real life. Life is not the binary. We are not opposites of each other. You know, the best person has bad qualities. The worst person has some good qualities and is still a person. You know, you can be simultaneously have empathy and hold boundaries. You know, two things that people think might be opposites very often overlap and exist at the same time. And in the same way, you know, that's why I could that's why I could maintain my relationship with my parents, is I could understand that, no, this is not the binary. These people who raised me and loved me and did a lot of things right and really tried hard, you know, they're not good or bad, right or wrong. That I think that a lot of the things that they're doing I don't want to be around it, but I can still see that they're good people. And when it's healthy for me, I will interact with my family in a way that is safe for me and respectful of them. That's did all the 12-step stuff. And so I appreciate that. You know, I just have come to believe that the world is there's a lot more gray area and nuance than they wanted to deal with. But I can do it. And I would rather live like that.
Beautiful.
I think we're getting down to the big O.
So
there we go.
The big O, as we mentioned in the beginning, as we have in every episode, is what is that big thing that happens to come at the end of our show? that, you know, what's that big lesson? What's that if you were going to share insight, that one thing
to leave
our viewers, to leave us with this, what would that be? Who would like to go?
So we have 2 big O's.
Oh,
Lucky.
I think the biggest thing that you can take away from this is to take responsibility for your own life.
Beautiful.
That's all.
Take responsibility for your own life, because here's the thing that I've learned is that if you let other people come in and tell you what to do, you are going to be miserable and you are not going to be happy. And that's the biggest thing I've learned from my whole experience in the cult is that I need to take responsibility for my own life. So I went from being in this cult where other people were telling me what to do and telling me how to live my life. But now that I'm taking responsibility for my own actions, and I tell myself when I've corrected myself, I tell myself when I've fixed something. I don't need somebody else to tell me, oh yeah, you're forgiven of your sins. Who has the responsibility? Who has the right to tell you how you should feel? You know. So when you take that responsibility, it empowers you to have more control over how happy you are.
Beautiful. Well,
Well
said.
said.
Thank you.
That's what I would say. You know, celebrate yourself, celebrate life, and be kind, and live with purpose. And just understand that life is not so black and white, right or wrong. You're always going to be learning. You can make meaningful connections with people. It's possible. And just maybe work out some ways to feel grounded and learn how to trust your instincts.
Beautiful. All right, well, thank you very much, Russell, Aurora. Give it big hugs.
Yay!
It was truly a pleasure.
Yeah.
Maybe even a future episode.
I hope so.
For sure, I really want to do it again. Yeah, that was fun.
I feel like though we could not look.
Oh, I know. I'm too tall.
I'm confident there were a lot of comments and a lot of great questions that I hope to be able to address for the future for everybody who
send in
Well,
a question
that we were
comment.
not able to get to. We plan to bring these 2 wonderful individuals back.
Thank
I'll
you
come
for the
back.
opportunity. That was really cool.
I love it.
So thank you.
Yeah, and afterwards we're gonna celebrate with pizza we made.
Fresh homemade dough that we made today.
And beer because
sausage.
we can drink now.
That's great. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah,
guys.
thank you
Bye,
so
y'all.
much. Yeah, so we're gonna close and then we'll be over there and we'll have the pizza.
Okay.
Okay.
All right, what do we do? Do we go?
Exit
Yeah.
stage right.
Oh, okay.
Bye.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few minutes.
All right.
All right.
So thank you, everybody. Hope you enjoyed. That
All
was
those insights.
truly
It's
wonderful.
like-
Truly wonderful. And we do intend fully to review comments and
questions.
bring those 2 back for a future episode, because in many ways I feel we barely even tapped into the potential, the possibilities, the insight that can come from such a topic.
deep topic.
Mhm.
It's So that was, like you said, that was just scratching the surface, really. And hopefully, you know, some people out there, even if you're not in a cult, but you're involved in an oppressive relationship, you were able to be inspired by some of the things they said.
Glean a little insight to help bring light to your
current
day.
period of darkness or confusion.
So-
So before we end, as a special thank you to our, because we're also on YouTube right now, but we threw that in to expand our reach. But our main platform of streaming has been on Facebook. So Facebook viewers. One lucky viewer is going to get a reading like we always do. Who wants one? I'm just going to go and take a look because we can scoot it over now because there's just 2 of us.
Boom. Scoochie, 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 scoochie. Yeah. Extreme close up. Oh, smooch time. Okay.
Yeah, we didn't do it because, you know, everyone.
So, who'd like a reading? Give us a yes. Give us a maybe. Give us, well, preferably a confirmation of some kind that you would like a reading right now.
Yeah, and if there's no one, I'll pull a card for everybody. Oh, it is about to die, actually. Oh, yeah, Cindy, I hear you.
Do we have to finish it or are we going to lose it?
It's actually about to die. So I think that
we're going to have one random show where we don't have a reading so that we don't lose all the information that we just had.
Oh, Cindy, I am going to give you a reading. I am going to respond to your comment because the camera, the phone is about to die. Unless we can plug it in right now. Let's see if we can. But just in case it dies. Just in case it dies.
Plug that thing in. Is it the right kind?
No, because it doesn't work for my phone. We went longer today than usual.
Boom.
Hold on 1 second. If we can plug it in before it dies. Yeah. Regardless of what happens, I'm going to start shuffling now and pick your card.
Bleep, bleep, bleep.
Okay, so your card is Transformation. This indicates that there's a huge change coming in your life. Oh, hold on 1 second. We're going to plug it in. Yeah, just scoot it backwards.
Scoochy, scooch.
Okay. Yeah, we went longer than usual, so the phone was on its way to dying, but.
All right, go do your thing.
All right, so now that it's plugged in, thank you, Joshua, for taking care of that.
We're taking care of business.
It's not a little baby change or taking little baby steps. Like, it's sometimes necessary. You know, oh, and I see, yeah, we're still on YouTube too, but I'm giving her reading over here. Not little baby steps. This is a major change in your life that is going to turn things around. What
does the card say?
It's transformation. Yeah, and like I said, it's not something little. This is huge. This could do with overhauling, you know, a lot of stuff that you thought was going to stay that way for a long time could already be at its end now. It might be kind of surprising, unexpected, but being the kind of person you are, you know, you roll with the punches and you make things happen. And this is encouragement that regardless of how challenging that can be, you've got it, you're an inspiration, and it's going to take you to the next level. It's not just the sort of change where you feel, wow, my routine is different now. You know, it's the kind of change that empowers you and helps you be an even bigger example for people that you help. Because when we walk our talk and when we do things that a lot of people or the people in our lives are kind of scared to, but they want to, when at least one person does that, it helps start a new way. It kind of revolutionizes things. So yeah, whatever that is, Cindy, wishing you all the best. Yeah, it feels big. Feels pretty big. And that is the mini reading for this episode.
So I hope you have all had a fantastic time with our guest, this controversial topic. We will have more. But until then, I'm John.
Bye.